Japan sells a dream better than almost any country on Earth. Cherry blossoms, ancient shrines, bullet trains cutting through misty mountain valleys. And for millions of travelers every year, that dream survives the flight, clears customs, and delivers exactly what was promised. But for millions more, something goes wrong. The wrong city, the wrong season, the wrong neighborhood, money spent, days lost, a trip that should have been extraordinary settling for ordinary instead. Today we are ranking 8 Japanese cities you need to think twice about and telling you exactly where to go instead. Number 8. Osaka, Dotonbori District. Let us get one thing clear before we go any further. Osaka is not a dangerous city. Japan as a whole is one of the safest countries on the planet for travelers. The public transport system runs with a precision that would make most European cities blush. The streets are clean, the people are helpful, and the food culture across the city is genuinely extraordinary. Osaka has one of the highest concentrations of excellent affordable restaurants per square kilometer of any major city in Asia, and the locals take an almost competitive pride in the quality of their street food. None of that is in question. But dangerous and disappointing are two very different things, and Dotonbori, Osaka's most hyped tourist corridor, has become a case study in how over-tourism can hollow out an experience until almost nothing genuine is left. What you find in Dotonbori today is a neon-lit theme park version of Japanese street culture. Every restaurant is running a queue management system designed to cycle tourists through as fast as possible. Every food stall is selling takoyaki and ramen to people taking photos of it rather than tasting it. The famous Glico Running Man sign is surrounded by crowds so thick on weekend evenings that crossing the bridge underneath it takes 15 minutes. The mechanical crab above the Kani Doraku restaurant, which once felt like a genuinely eccentric piece of Osaka personality, has become one of the most photographed objects in the country, which sounds positive until you are standing beneath it with 300 other people all waiting for the same shot. The practical problems compound the experiential ones. Accommodation in the immediate Dotonbori area is priced at a significant premium over the rest of the city because the address sells itself, and the quality of those accommodations rarely justifies the price. Many of the hotels closest to the main strip are cramped, poorly soundproofed against the evening crowds, and check-in experiences that feel designed for rapid turnover rather than hospitality. The streets immediately behind the main canal strip are cluttered with shops selling identical souvenirs at identical prices. The second you step off the main corridor, the experience can improve dramatically, but the layout of the district funnels foot traffic in ways that make it genuinely difficult to find that quieter version of the neighborhood. You will spend more money and get less experience than visitors staying almost anywhere else in the city. Go here instead. Stay in Namba or Shinsaibashi and use them as your Osaka base. Both neighborhoods give you easy access to Dotonbori if you want to see what all the fuss is about, while keeping you out of the most tourist-saturated accommodation zone. Then take the train 30 minutes south to Sakai, a city of 500,000 people with almost no English-language tourism infrastructure and some of the best street food culture in the Kansai region. Sakai is also one of the primary production centers for professional Japanese knives, and the workshops there welcome visitors in a way that the polished tourist shops of Osaka's center do not. Or go north of central Osaka to Mino, where a waterfall trail through maple forest delivers the kind of quiet, genuinely Japanese experience that Dotonbori has not offered in years. The next city on this list suffers from a very different problem, one that shocks first-time Japan travelers because it involves a destination so internationally famous that skipping it feels almost culturally irresponsible. Number 7. Hakone. Hakone sits about 90 minutes southwest of Tokyo by the Romance Car Express train, and its combination of hot spring ryokan, views of Mount Fuji, and open-air sculpture parks has made it the single most popular day trip and weekend destination from the capital. On paper, the appeal is obvious. You get out of the city, you soak in a volcanic hot spring, you look at one of the most recognizable mountains in the world, and you return to Tokyo feeling like you have touched something deeply Japanese. That is a compelling 2-day story, and the tourism industry has optimized every element of getting you to believe it. That popularity is exactly the problem. On a clear day with good visibility, the view of Fuji from the Hakone Open Air Museum or across Lake Ashi is as beautiful as anything in Japan. The reflection of the mountain in still morning water, the way snow on the upper cone catches light at different angles throughout the day, the scale of it against open sky. These are real things that genuinely reward the journey. But here is the number that matters. Mount Fuji is hidden behind clouds roughly 200 days per year. Travelers arriving from Tokyo on a standard 2-day itinerary have a significantly below 50% chance of seeing the mountain at all. And the entire Hakone experience is built around a view that frequently does not materialize. Many travelers arrive, spend 2 nights at significant expense, and see nothing but gray sky above the ridgeline. The ryokan situation adds another layer of complexity. The authentic onsen ryokan experience in Hakone, the kind with a private outdoor bath, a multi-course kaiseki dinner, and a tatami-floored room overlooking a forest garden, costs between 50,000 and 150,000 yen per person per night at current rates. That is real money for what may be a cloudy weekend without a Fuji view. Budget ryokan options exist, but they tend to share bath facilities and use dining rooms that feel closer to a conference hotel than a traditional inn. The middle tier of accommodation, where most travelers end up, often delivers neither the value of the budget options nor the experience of the high-end ones. The Hakone Ropeway and the Owakudani Volcanic Valley are both closed periodically due to volcanic activity alerts, so the backup attractions are not always available either. When the ropeway is running, it is scenic and worth taking. When it is not, the alternatives require a combination of local buses and funicular railways that add time and logistical complexity to an itinerary that is already stretched thin. Go here instead. Take the Shinkansen one stop further and visit Atami, a hot spring resort town on Sagami Bay, with a fraction of the tourist volume, equally good ryokan options at meaningfully lower price points, and an ocean view that does not depend on weather cooperation. The MOA Museum of Art in Atami, set into a hillside above the bay, contains one of the finest collections of Japanese and East Asian art in the country, and draws almost no international visitors despite being genuinely world-class. Or, if the mountain matters to you more than the spa, take the Chuo line to Kofu in Yamanashi Prefecture, where the views across the vineyards toward Fuji on a clear morning are genuinely extraordinary and the crowds are close to zero. Kofu also gives you access to Shosenkyo Gorge, ranked consistently as one of Japan's finest gorge walks, with none of the logistical friction that defines the Hakone experience. But if you think Hakone's overcrowding problem is significant, wait until you see what is happening in the next city on this list. This one generates more frustrated travel reviews than almost any other destination in Japan. Number 6. Kyoto. Summer, July, and August. Let us be very precise here, because Kyoto itself is not the problem. Kyoto contains some of the most extraordinary cultural heritage in Asia. Fushimi Inari's 10,000 torii gates, climbing the forested mountain behind the main shrine. Kinkakuji's gold reflection in its mirror pond on a windless morning. The bamboo grove at Arashiyama, where the stalks are so dense they create their own filtered green light. The Machiya townhouses of Gion at dusk, when the wooden facades catch the last of the day's warmth and the occasional geiko disappears around a corner. Kyoto is genuinely irreplaceable. No other city on this list gets removed from the travel conversation entirely, but one version of it does. Kyoto in July and August is a categorically different destination from Kyoto in any other season, and the difference is severe enough to warrant its own conversation. Summer temperatures in Kyoto regularly exceed 35 degrees Celsius, with humidity levels that make actual air temperature feel closer to 40. The city sits in a basin between 3 mountain ranges that trap heat with extraordinary efficiency, the same geography that makes Kyoto's autumn and spring so visually spectacular. Those layered ridgelines holding fog in the morning and color in the fall turns the city into a heat sink from late June through early September. Walking between the main heritage sites, even with breaks, becomes physically punishing for visitors of any age and genuinely dangerous for senior travelers or anyone with cardiovascular considerations. The distances between Kyoto's major temples are not trivial, and the combination of heat, humidity, and hard ground means that by early afternoon most visitors are operating at a fraction of the engagement they brought to the morning. The crowds during summer peak season add a separate layer of difficulty. July and August coincide with Japanese school holidays, the Gion Matsuri Festival in mid-July, and the peak of international tourist season. The main sites are operating at crowd densities that reduce the experience significantly. Some temples have introduced timed entry ticketing and reservation systems precisely because the volume of visitors was causing physical damage to the grounds and making contemplation of the spaces functionally impossible. The Philosopher's Path, which in other seasons offers one of Japan's most genuinely meditative walks along a canal lined with cherry trees, becomes a narrow pedestrian congestion point in summer, with the trees providing almost no shade once their spring foliage has thickened. Go here instead. Visit Kyoto in November, when the autumn maple foliage turns the temple gardens into something that genuinely exceeds every photograph you have ever seen of them. Tofuku-ji's checkered garden under red maples. Eikendu's pagoda emerging from scarlet and orange hillside. The crowds in November are real, but the temperatures are comfortable, the light is extraordinary in the late afternoon, and the experience of standing inside these spaces actually has room to breathe. Or visit in late February and early March, before cherry blossom season peaks, when crowds are at their annual low and the city operates at a pace that actually lets you look at things. The plum blossoms at Kitano Tenmangu are in full display in February. The same temples, the same gardens, a completely different experience. And now we are getting to the part of this list that is going to surprise you. The next entry is a city most travelers would never expect to see here because its reputation is essentially perfect. But that reputation is hiding something important. Number 5. Nara. Nara is sold as one of Japan's essential day trips. The Great Buddha at Tadaiji, one of the largest wooden structures on Earth, sitting in a hall so vast it diminishes the enormous bronze figure inside it, in a way that communicates scale more effectively than any photograph can. The freely wandering deer of Nara Park, who will bow their heads to receive deer crackers from your hand, in a ritual the tourism brochures describe as charming and almost fairy tale in character. The ancient Shinto shrines at Kasuga Taisha, glowing with hundreds of stone lanterns at dusk, the light filtering through cedar forest in a way that feels genuinely ancient. Nara genuinely has all of this. What Nara also has is one of the most extreme and least discussed visitor experience problems of any Japanese destination. The deer are the issue. Nara's deer are wild animals protected by law since the 8th century and habituated to humans over more than 1,000 years. They have also collectively learned, through generations of contact with tourists, that visitors carry food, and their methods for obtaining that food have evolved past charming and into genuinely aggressive. Deer crowding visitors from multiple directions simultaneously, headbutting bags, biting clothing, and blocking paths until they receive something are standard behaviors that the tourism literature describes with careful softness. The phrasing tends toward spirited and persistent. The reality on a busy weekend afternoon with a group of 8 or 10 deer applying coordinated pressure to a traveler who made the mistake of buying crackers near the park entrance is considerably less enchanting. For solo travelers, for children, and particularly for senior travelers with balance concerns, a group of persistent, food-motivated deer surrounding you on Nara's main paths is not a lighthearted anecdote. It is a fall risk. Several visitors are knocked over each year, and the park management signage warning about deer behavior is extensive precisely because the incidents are real and regular. The deer do not distinguish between travelers who purchase crackers and those who do not. If you have food anywhere in your bag, visible or not, the deer will find it, and they are persistent in ways that most tourists are completely unprepared for. If you have children under 10 with you, managing the deer encounter while also keeping the children safe requires a level of active vigilance that leaves little attention for actually experiencing the park. Beyond the deer situation, Nara's main tourist corridor between the train station and Tadaiji is lined almost entirely with souvenir shops selling deer-themed merchandise at prices calibrated for day trippers with limited time to comparison shop. The experience outside that corridor is genuinely more interesting, but most day trippers never find it because the layout funnels everyone down the same commercial path, and the signs all point in one direction. Go here instead. Spend your Kansai day trip budget on Yoshino, 1 hour south of Nara by train, where a mountain town famous for its cherry blossoms has preserved a medieval character that Nara's main zone has largely traded away. Yoshino's main street climbs a mountain with centuries-old temples on either side, almost no crowds outside blossom season, and accommodation options in traditional inns where the owners have been running the same rooms for multiple generations. Or take the local train from Nara to Kasugano and walk the Eastern Hills Circuit past ancient stone lanterns and moss-covered shrine precincts with almost none of the crowds that define the main tourist path. The next city on this list has a completely different kind of problem, and it is one that almost nobody talks about publicly because the city's overall reputation is so strong. If this list is already changing how you think about Japan travel, hit that like button right now. The next 4 entries are where it gets really interesting. Number 4. Hiroshima as a single-day trip. Nothing about Hiroshima as a destination is without value. The Peace Memorial Museum is one of the most important historical sites in the world. The rebuilt city, with its wide riverways and contemporary architecture rising alongside preserved remnants of what was destroyed, tells a story about resilience and civic intention that is unlike anything else in Japan. The oysters from Hiroshima Bay are among the best in Japan. The people of Hiroshima are quietly proud of what their city has become since 1945, and that pride is evident in the care given to both the memorial spaces and the everyday fabric of the city. The problem is not Hiroshima. The problem is the single-day itinerary that most tourists follow, arriving on the Shinkansen from Osaka or Kyoto in the morning, rushing through the museum, taking a ferry to Miyajima Island for the floating Torii Gate photo, and catching the last Shinkansen back in the evening. That itinerary asks travelers to process one of the heaviest emotional experiences available to any visitor, in any country, and then immediately pivot to a tourist photo opportunity on a scenic island, before boarding a high-speed train back to a hotel they will have for another 2 nights. The emotional whiplash built into that schedule is something that most travelers do not anticipate until they are already inside the museum, looking at what they are looking at, and realizing that they have allocated 90 minutes before they need to be somewhere else. The Peace Memorial Museum is genuinely devastating, in the best and most necessary sense. It requires time, emotional space, and the ability to sit with what you have seen. There are benches outside. There is a park designed for quiet reflection. The survivors who have donated their testimonies to the museum deserve visitors who arrive with enough time to receive what they are sharing. Rushing it as a box to check before the Miyajima ferry does a disservice to the site, to the people it memorializes, and to yourself as a traveler. The A-bomb dome across the river, which should be visited slowly and in silence, is routinely reduced to a 10-minute photo stop in the standard day trip schedule, and that reduction is noticeable in every rushed photo that ends up online. Go here instead, or rather, go here differently. Stay at least one night in Hiroshima. Give the museum 3 hours minimum and allocate quiet time after. Make Miyajima its own half-day rather than an attachment to an already full schedule. The low-tide walk around the Great Torii, when you can actually approach the gate on foot across the sand flats, requires timing that no day trip schedule accommodates. The city's Okonomimura building, 5 floors dedicated entirely to Hiroshima-style okonomiyaki, and the evening light on the Motoyasu River from the Aioi Bridge both deserve time you will not have on a day trip. Hiroshima at night, with the memorial lanterns on the river and the city quiet around you, is a completely different experience from the one you carry with you on the 6 p.m. Shinkansen. And if Hiroshima's problem is about pace, the next entry has a problem about expectation, and it involves a destination that travelers have been overpromised on for decades. Number 3. Tokyo, Shibuya, and Shinjuku on New Year's Eve. Tokyo is not on this list as a city to avoid. Tokyo is one of the great cities of the world, full stop. The scale, the neighborhoods, the food, the transit system, the coexistence of ancient and ultra-modern within the same city block. Tokyo rewards every day you give it and still has more to show you. None of that is under dispute. But Tokyo on New Year's Eve, specifically in Shibuya and Shinjuku, is a specific experience that does not match what travelers are expecting when they book flights to be there for the occasion. The flights are expensive, the hotels are priced at their annual peak. The city is full of international visitors who arrived specifically for a New Year's celebration that the city does not actually produce in the form they are imagining. The expectation is a celebration, a spectacle, a citywide party with fireworks and crowds and the energy of one of the world's great metropolises welcoming a new year in a way that matches what Sydney does at the Harbour Bridge or what London does at the Thames. That expectation is built and reinforced by travel content that shows Shibuya Crossing at its most visually overwhelming and implies that New Year's Eve turns it into something even more extraordinary. The reality is that Japan does not celebrate New Year's Eve the way Western cities do. There are no public fireworks displays over central Tokyo. There is no equivalent of a countdown ceremony at a civic landmark. Shibuya Crossing, which the internet has convinced millions of people is the place to be at midnight, is simply an extremely crowded intersection with no organized event, no sound system, no official programming, and police barriers keeping the crowd from actually standing where the famous crossing photographs are taken. At midnight, nothing happens at Shibuya Crossing that does not happen at any other hour. The crowd counts down and then disperses into a city that is, in most of its neighborhoods, quietly closed. What New Year's Eve actually is in Japan is a private family occasion. Temples open at midnight for Hatsumode, the first shrine visit of the year, and the atmosphere at places like Meiji Jingu or Asakusa's Sensoji is genuinely meaningful and beautiful. The sound of the great bell, The slow procession through cedar trees and cold air, the smell of incense smoke drifting over a crowd of people who have dressed in kimono for the occasion. These are real and moving experiences. But the crowds there are also enormous, and the experience requires standing in very long queues, in winter temperatures, sometimes for 2 hours or more, to reach the main shrine building. Go here instead. If you are in Tokyo for New Year's, take the train to Kamakura and watch the midnight bells at Engakuji or Kenchoji, two of the great Zen temple complexes in Japan, where the Hatsumode atmosphere is present without the metropolitan crowd density. The scale is human. You can actually see the monks, you can hear the bell. Or travel north to Nikko, where New Year's at Toshogu Shrine is one of the most visually extraordinary traditional celebrations in the country, with firelight, formal ceremony, and a crowd that has come specifically to experience the tradition, rather than to post about a countdown. Now, we are down to the final two entries on this list, and these are the ones that generate the most debate, because they are not obviously bad destinations. They are simply places where the gap between the reputation and the reality is wider than it has any right to be. Number 2. Sapporo, Winter Outside Snow Festival Week. Sapporo is Hokkaido's capital, Japan's northernmost major island, and the host city of the Sapporo Snow Festival in early February, which genuinely deserves its international reputation. The snow sculptures at Odori Park, some reaching 10 meters high and illuminated at night against the dark sky, require a scale of planning and technical skill that makes them a legitimate spectacle. The food culture in Sapporo is among the best in Japan. The miso ramen, developed here to stand up to Hokkaido winters with a richness and body that Kyushu-style tonkotsu does not attempt, is one of the great regional ramen variations in the country. The lamb barbecue, known as jingisuken, cooked on a domed iron grill at the table and paired with draft Sapporo beer, is a meal that has no real equivalent elsewhere in Japan. The fresh seafood from Hokkaido's cold waters, particularly the sea urchin and the king crab available at the Nijo market, is worth a trip on its own. But Sapporo, in winter, outside of Snow Festival Week, which spans roughly 7 days in early February, is a cold, gray, and logistically demanding destination without the event anchor that justifies the difficulty. Temperatures in Sapporo regularly drop below -10°C from December through February. Snow accumulation in the city averages around 6 meters per winter season. For travelers expecting the picturesque snowscapes of rural Hokkaido, the kind that appear on every travel calendar and every Japan in winter social media post, Sapporo's urban environment does not deliver them. The city is a functioning modern metropolis that manages its extreme snowfall with industrial efficiency, meaning the streets are cleared by machines, the sidewalks are heated in places by underground pipe systems, the snow is gray and compressed into barriers at road edges, and the experience is cold without being beautiful. The underground shopping network called Sapporo's Underground City, which connects major stations and allows residents to walk substantial distances without going outside, is genuinely useful in January, but tells you something important about what the street-level experience is like. Go here instead. If you are visiting Hokkaido in winter, take the train 2 hours east to Furano and Biei, where the snow-covered rolling hills and the frozen lavender fields produce the actual winter landscape that Hokkaido photographs are made from. Furano's ski resort is also one of the best in Japan, with powder conditions that compete with anything in North America or Europe at a fraction of the price and the crowd density. Or travel north to Asahikawa, where the zoo is one of the best in Asia, specifically designed to show animals in conditions that match their natural cold weather environments. And the Asahikawa Ramen Village lets you compare 7 regional ramen styles in a single afternoon without fighting for a seat in any individual shop. And the final city on this list is the one that is going to generate the most pushback. It is beloved, it is iconic, and everything we are about to say about it is accurate. Number 1. Tokyo, Harajuku. Harajuku built its international reputation on one specific cultural phenomenon, the Harajuku girls, the extraordinary street fashion subculture that emerged along Takeshita Street and the adjacent lanes from the 1980s through the 2000s, producing some of the most visually inventive personal style anywhere in the world. Layers, volume, color combinations that defied every conventional fashion logic. Handmade elements mixed with obscure vintage finds and niche label pieces. Publications from overseas sent photographers specifically to document what was happening on these streets. Travel writers called it the most creative square kilometer on the planet. None of that was an exaggeration. It was real. It was specific to this place, and it mattered. That subculture is largely gone. The economic and social conditions that produced it, including affordable rents along Takeshita and the surrounding lanes, a concentration of independently owned secondhand and experimental clothing stores, and a genuine youth counterculture that used fashion as its primary mode of expression and communication, have been replaced by a different economic reality. Rents rose as the neighborhood became famous. Independent stores could not compete with what chains were willing to pay for the same floor space. The young people who created the aesthetic could not afford to stay in the area that they had made desirable. This is a story that plays out in creative neighborhoods all over the world, and Harajuku is simply the Japanese version of it. Takeshita Street today is a commercial zone selling fast fashion merchandise, rainbow crepe cakes designed to photograph well, and branded goods from international chains that have moved in. As rents rose, the merchandise is marketed using the aesthetic language of the original subculture, the bright colors, the layering, the self-conscious maximalism, without any of the actual creative intent that generated it. The stores understand that the legend of Harajuku sells, so they use its visual vocabulary to move inventory to tourists who arrived specifically because they read about the original culture. It is a neighborhood that is famous for something it no longer is, selling a version of its past self to visitors who have no reference point to know the difference. Ura Harajuku, the network of backstreets where the actual fashion community relocated after Takeshita became unaffordable and overrun, still exists and is genuinely interesting, but it is increasingly difficult to find without local knowledge. It does not welcome passive tourism from people wandering through, hoping to watch something happen, and the gap between what Takeshita Street promises and what it delivers is large enough to constitute a genuine misrepresentation of the destination. The fashion community that still exists in Tokyo has moved, spread, adapted. It did not disappear entirely, but it is not on Takeshita Street, and it has not been for years. Go here instead. Take the Yamanote Line 2 stops south to Shimokitazawa, where the independent music venues, vintage clothing shops, Kissaten coffee houses, and dense cafe culture that defined Harajuku 2 decades ago are alive and functioning without the performance of it. Shimokitazawa does not know it is supposed to be charming, which is exactly why it is. You can spend an entire afternoon moving between a record shop, a 40-seat live music venue with an afternoon jazz session, a vintage store where the owner knows the provenance of everything on the rack, and a standing ramen counter where 3 people ahead of you are arguing about ingredients, and not pay an entry fee for any of it. Shimokitazawa is one of the most genuinely interesting neighborhoods in all of Japan. It charges nothing to walk around, and it has not been redesigned for people arriving with cameras looking for a culture that already moved on. Japan rewards travelers who look past the famous and find the real. The cities and neighborhoods on this list are not places to hate. They are not failures. Many of them are extraordinary in the right conditions, the right season, the right pace, or the right context. But context is exactly what the standard travel recommendation system does not give you because context requires honesty about trade-offs, and trade-offs are harder to sell than highlights. Thanks for watching. If this gave you a clearer picture of where to spend your Japan travel budget, hit subscribe right now and click the next video showing on the left. We are covering Southeast Asia next, and at least 3 entries will completely change where you thought you were going. Drop your Japan questions in the comments below. We read every single one and answer as many as we can. See you there.